Her wealthy stepfather disowned her, so she married his richest rival. You think you can buy me like one of your business deals? Brandy's voice cut through the elegant restaurant atmosphere like a blade through silk. Alexander leaned back in his chair, his dark eyes never leaving hers. I'm not trying to buy you, Brandy. I'm trying to save you from a man who already has. Save me? She laughed, but there was fire in it. I don't need saving, Alexander. I need revenge. Welcome back, Golden Family. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button because you're about to witness a love story that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about family, loyalty, and the price of freedom. Drop a heart in the comments if you've ever had to choose between family expectations and your own dreams. Now, let's get back to the story. Brandy woke with Alexander's laugh still echoing in her mind. 3 hours. They'd talked for 3 hours at Harvest Moon, and it had felt like minutes. She stretched in her narrow bed, replaying the moment he'd said her name, not Whitmore, just Brandy, like it was something precious. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from an unknown number made her pulse quicken. Good morning. I hope you slept better than I did. Still thinking about our conversation. Alexander. She stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. What did you say to a man who'd made you forget every reason you had to be guarded? Before she could respond, her phone exploded with notifications. Instagram, Twitter, missed calls, text messages, all flooding in simultaneously. What the hell? She sat up, scrolling through the chaos. Maya's name flashed across the screen. Please tell me you're sitting down, Maya said without preamble. I'm in bed. Why are you calling me at 7 in the morning? Because you're famous. Check foodie gossip right now. Brandy's stomach dropped as she opened her laptop. There, in crystal clear detail, was a photo of her and Alexander from last night. The photographer had captured them mid-conversation, her leaning forward with genuine interest, him gesturing with his hands as he explained something that had made her smile. The headline screamed, Mystery Food Critic Revealed, Disowned Heiress Brandy Whitmore Caught with Crypto Billionaire Alexander Torres. Oh God. The words came out strangled. It gets worse. Someone connected your SC. Reviews to your real identity. Your blog traffic has tripled in the last hour. Brandy scrolled through the comments, her heart hammering. Most were supportive, people praising her writing, expressing sympathy for her family situation, calling her brave for choosing independence. But others cut deep, questioning her motives, suggesting she was using Alexander for his money. Brandy? Are you still there? Richard's going to lose his mind. Probably. But look at the bright side, your subscriber count is climbing faster than Bitcoin in 2017. Despite everything, Brandy found herself smiling. That's a terrible analogy. But accurate. The question is, what are you going to do about Alexander? As if summoned by Maya's words, another text appeared from him. I saw the photos. I hope this doesn't change anything between us. Would you still like to get coffee today? Brandy's chest tightened. Here was her escape route, handed to her on a silver platter. She could blame the media attention, retreat back into anonymity, avoid the complications that came with dating Richard Whitmore's business rival. He still wants to see me, she told Maya. Of course he does. The man looked at you like you were the last piece of chocolate in a world full of vanilla. The question is, what do you want? Brandy closed her eyes, remembering the way Alexander had listened when she talked about her writing. Really listened, asking follow-up questions that showed he understood not just her words but the passion behind them. When was the last time someone had done that? I want to see him again. Then text him back. But Brandy? Be ready for this to get complicated fast. Richard doesn't lose quietly. After Maya hung up, Brandy stared at Alexander's message for a long moment before typing. The photos don't change anything. Coffee sounds perfect. Where and when? His response came within minutes. Ritual Coffee on Valencia. 2 p.m.? It's quiet, and they have the best Ethiopian beans in the city. Perfect. See you there. Brandy set down her phone and walked to her closet. The designer clothes from her Whitmore days hung beside pieces she'd bought with her own money, a visual representation of her divided life. Today felt like a day for authenticity. She chose dark jeans and a soft gray sweater, clothes that felt like her rather than the person Richard had tried to mold her into. As she dressed, her phone continued buzzing with notifications, but she ignored them all. In the bathroom mirror, she studied her reflection. The woman looking back at her had the same face as the one who'd sat through countless charity luncheons and society dinners, but something fundamental had shifted. Her eyes held a spark that had been missing for years. Her laptop chimed with an email notification. The sender made her breath catch. Jennifer Walsh, Walsh Literary Agency. I've been following your work as SC for months. Your voice is exactly what the food writing world needs: authentic, insightful, uncompromising. After this morning's revelation about your identity, I believe there's significant publisher interest in a book deal. Would you be available for a call this week? Best regards, Jennifer Walsh. Brandy read the email 3 times, hardly believing the words. A book deal. Based on her writing, her expertise, her voice, not her stepfather's connections or money. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, but paused at the threshold. 6 weeks ago, she'd walked out of the Whitmore mansion with nothing but her pride and her principles. Today, she was walking toward a coffee date with a man who made her laugh, a career built on her own merit, and a future she was finally excited about. Her phone buzzed one more time. Richard's number flashed on the screen. She declined the call and stepped into the San Francisco morning, ready to face whatever came next. The war was coming, she could feel it building like storm clouds on the horizon. But for the first time in her adult life, Brandy wasn't running from a fight. She was walking straight toward the person who made her want to be brave enough to win it. Alexander Torres was waiting, and she had 3 hours of conversation to build on. The thought made her smile as she headed down the street, leaving Richard's unanswered call and all her old fears behind. Ritual Coffee buzzed with the afternoon energy of freelancers and students, but Brandy spotted Alexander immediately. He sat in a corner booth, 2 cups already waiting on the table, his attention focused on something on his phone. When he looked up and saw her, his smile transformed his entire face. You came. He stood as she approached, and for a moment they both hesitated. Handshake? But the awkwardness made her laugh. Did you think I wouldn't? After this morning's media circus? I wasn't sure. He gestured to the coffee. Ethiopian single origin, no sugar. I took a guess based on your review of that place in Oakland. Brandy slid into the booth across from him, impressed despite herself. You remember what I wrote about their coffee? I remember everything you write. Your piece on authentic ramen versus Instagram ramen made me rethink 3 restaurant investments. The compliment warmed her more than the coffee. Most people think food criticism is just complaining about overpriced meals. Most people don't understand that you're documenting culture. Every review tells a story about who we are, what we value, how we connect with each other. Alexander leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. Your writing does something most critics can't. It makes people care about the story behind their food. Brandy felt heat rise in her cheeks. You're going to make me insufferably arrogant if you keep talking like that. Good. You should be arrogant about your work. It's exceptional. They fell into easy conversation, the kind that jumped from topic to topic without losing momentum. Alexander told her about his latest investment, a vertical farming startup run by 2 women from Oakland who were revolutionizing urban agriculture. Brandy shared her frustration with restaurants that prioritized social media aesthetics over actual flavor. Can I ask you something? Alexander's tone shifted, becoming more serious. Shoot. Last night, you mentioned that your stepfather wanted you to marry someone named James Ashford. What was that about? Brandy's stomach tightened. Strategic positioning according to Richard. The Ashfords control shipping on the East Coast. A marriage between our families would be mutually beneficial. Mutually beneficial for who? Not for me, that's for sure. She took a sip of coffee, buying time to organize her thoughts. James Ashford is perfectly nice, I'm sure. Wharton MBA, heir to a fortune, probably knows which fork to use for the fish course. But Richard wasn't asking if I liked him or if we had anything in common. He was arranging a business merger that happened to involve my uterus. Alexander's jaw tightened. That's medieval. That's old money. Everything is about maintaining power, preserving wealth, controlling the narrative. Individual happiness is a luxury they can't afford. Is that why you left? The question hung between them, loaded with implications. Brandy studied Alexander's face, searching for judgment or pity. She found neither, only genuine curiosity and something that looked like admiration. I left because I was suffocating. Do you know what it's like to live someone else's life for so long that you forget who you actually are? Tell me. So she did. She told him about Swiss boarding schools where conformity was prized above creativity, about charity luncheons where she smiled and nodded while discussing nothing of substance, about the careful choreography of being a Whitmore, which restaurants to frequent, which causes to support, which opinions were acceptable to express in public. I started the food blog as an escape, she admitted. For 18 months, I lived this double life where I could be authentic for a few hours each week while writing reviews. What changed? Richard found out about the culinary journalism program. When I told him I'd been accepted, he looked at me like I'd announced I was joining the circus. Food criticism was beneath our family's standing. She made air quotes, mimicking Richard's dismissive tone. Alexander shook his head. The man has no idea what he lost. His loss my gain. For the first time in my life, I'm building something that's entirely mine. No trust fund, no family connections, no safety net. Just my writing and whatever talent I can scrape together. How's that working out? Brandy grinned. Terrifyingly well. This morning I got an email from a literary agent in New York. Apparently there's publisher interest in a book deal. Brandy, that's incredible. Alexander's enthusiasm was infectious. What kind of book? Food memoir probably. Stories about the restaurants that shaped me, the meals that changed my perspective, the connection between food and identity. She paused, suddenly self-conscious. It sounds pretentious when I say it out loud. It sounds brilliant and necessary. Most food writing is either technical or nostalgic. You write about food like it matters, like it's connected to everything else in our lives. Alexander reached across the table and covered her hand with his. The touch sent electricity up her arm, but it was the look in his eyes that made her breath catch. Good. The world needs more people willing to be authentic, even when it's inconvenient. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, hands linked across the small table. Around them, the coffee shop continued its afternoon rhythm, but Brandy felt like they existed in their own bubble of possibility. Can I ask you something now? She said. Anything. Why did you want to see me again? After the photos, after all the complications that come with my family drama? Alexander's thumb traced across her knuckles, a gesture so gentle it made her heart race. Because in 3 hours of conversation last night, you made me laugh more than I have in months. Because you're passionate about something that matters. Because when you talk about food, your whole face lights up like you're sharing a secret. He paused, his expression growing more serious. And because I've spent the last 5 years building a fortune, and I've never met anyone who made me want to share it with them. Not the money, the life, the dreams. The possibility of building something meaningful together. Brandy's pulse hammered in her throat. Alexander. Too much too fast? Maybe. But I like it. His smile was slow and devastating. Good. Because I'd like to take you to dinner tomorrow night. Somewhere we can talk for 4 hours instead of 3. I'd like that too. As they prepared to leave, Alexander's phone buzzed with a notification. His expression darkened as he read the message. What is it? 3 of my restaurant partners just canceled their contracts. All in the last hour. Brandy's stomach dropped. Richard. Probably. But it doesn't matter. I've dealt with worse than Richard Whitmore. Alexander, I'm sorry. I never wanted my family drama to affect your business. He stood and offered her his hand. Brandy, look at me. She did, finding steady determination in his dark eyes. I don't care what your stepfather does. I don't care how complicated this gets. I care about you, and I'm not walking away from something real because some old money dinosaur thinks he can intimidate me. As they walked out of the coffee shop together, Brandy felt the weight of what was beginning between them. This wasn't just attraction or rebellion anymore, it was something deeper, more dangerous, more worth fighting for. Richard Whitmore's corner office commanded a view of Manhattan's financial district, but this morning he wasn't admiring the skyline. 3 printed photographs lay spread across his mahogany desk, each one showing his stepdaughter with Alexander Torres, each one a calculated insult to everything Richard had built. Sir? His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. Cancel my lunch with the senator. And get me Marcus on the line. Mr. Whitmore, Marcus' gravelly voice filled the office through the speakerphone. I assume this is about the photos I saw this morning. I want everything on Alexander Torres. Financial records, business associations, personal relationships, parking tickets. I want to know what he had for breakfast yesterday. How deep do you want me to dig? Deep enough to bury him. Richard terminated the call and swiveled his chair toward the window. His phone buzzed with an incoming call from James Ashford. Richard, I saw the news about Brandy. I wanted you to know that my offer still stands. Your offer. Marriage. I understand she's going through a rebellious phase, but these things pass. Young women often act out before they settle into their proper roles. Richard's jaw tightened. James Ashford was everything Richard wanted in a son-in-law: old money, proper breeding, unquestioning acceptance of traditional power structures. But the boy's naive assumption that Brandy would simply return to the fold revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of the situation. James, I appreciate your patience, but Brandy has made her position clear. She's chosen to align herself with my business rival. Surely that's just to spite you. Once she realizes the consequences. The consequences are already unfolding. Torres lost 3 restaurant partnerships this morning. By the end of the week, he'll understand the cost of crossing the Whitmore family. After ending the call, Richard opened his laptop and began making a list. Alexander Torres might be worth hundreds of millions, but wealth without connections was just numbers on a screen. Richard's power came from relationships built over decades. Senators who owed him favors, CEOs who needed his approval, judges who remembered his campaign contributions. His intercom buzzed again. Sir, I have Claire on line 2. Richard hesitated before accepting the call. His wife had been increasingly vocal about his handling of the Brandy situation, her maternal instincts conflicting with his strategic necessities. Richard, darling, I just spoke with my sister in San Francisco. She says Brandy looked genuinely happy in those photos. Happiness is a luxury we can't afford right now, Claire. Brandy's actions have consequences beyond her personal feelings. But what if she really cares for this man? What if this isn't just rebellion? Richard's voice turned cold. Then she's made her choice and she'll live with the results. She's your daughter, Richard. Stepdaughter. And she stopped being part of this family the moment she walked out that door. The silence on the other end of the line stretched uncomfortably long. When Claire finally spoke, her voice carried a note Richard had never heard before: disappointment. Sometimes I wonder if you remember what it feels like to love someone more than you love winning. She hung up before he could respond. Richard stared at the phone for a moment, then pushed Claire's words aside. Love was a weakness that men like Alexander Torres exploited. Brandy thought she'd found something real, but she was simply being manipulated by someone who understood her vulnerabilities. His computer chimed with an incoming email from Marcus. The subject line read, Preliminary Report A. Torres. Richard opened the attachment and began reading. Alexander Torres, 28, orphaned at 7, raised by grandmother Maria Santos in Oakland. Full scholarship to UC Berkeley, computer science degree with honors. Early adoption of cryptocurrency, founded Apex Digital Ventures at 24. Richard frowned as he continued reading. Torres donated anonymously to Oakland public schools, funded a scholarship program for underprivileged students, invested primarily in sustainable technology and social impact ventures. His business practices were aggressive but ethical, his personal life remarkably clean. The man was either a saint or exceptionally good at hiding his flaws. Richard's phone rang again. This time, the caller ID showed David, Brandy's biological father, who'd remained cordial despite the divorce from Claire years ago. Richard, I heard about the photos. How is Brandy? Brandy is no longer my concern. She's still my daughter. And from what I can see, she's finally standing up for herself. Richard's grip tightened on the phone. David had always been too soft, too willing to indulge Brandy's independence. It was precisely that weakness that had cost him his marriage to Claire. Standing up for herself? She's being manipulated by a man who sees her as a trophy. Or maybe she's found someone who appreciates her for who she actually is, not who you want her to be. David. Richard, I've watched you try to mold my daughter into your image of the perfect socialite for over a decade. Maybe it's time to consider that she was never meant for that life. The call ended, leaving Richard alone with his frustration and the growing realization that his usual tactics might not be sufficient. Brandy had allies he hadn't anticipated, and Alexander Torres was proving more resilient than expected. He opened his contact list and began making calls. By evening, he'd spoken with 12 CEOs, 6 senators, and 3 federal judges. Each conversation was brief, cordial, and devastatingly effective. Alexander Torres was about to discover that cryptocurrency millions meant nothing against old money connections. But as Richard worked through his list, a nagging thought persisted. Claire's words echoed in his mind. Sometimes I wonder if you remember what it feels like to love someone more than you love winning. He pushed the thought aside and continued making calls. Love was a luxury he couldn't afford, not when everything he'd built was under attack. The restaurant Alexander chose surprised Brandy. Instead of the trendy Mission hotspots or upscale establishments she'd expected, he'd brought her to a converted warehouse in Oakland where exposed brick walls showcased local artwork and the open kit hummed with purposeful energy. This is Tierra, Alexander said as they were seated at a corner table. The chef, Carmen Rodriguez, sources everything within 50 miles. I helped fund her startup 2 years ago. Brandy looked around, taking in the mismatched vintage chairs, the mason jar lighting, the chalkboard menu written in Spanish and English. It's perfect. I thought you'd appreciate the authenticity. No Instagram walls or molecular gastronomy, just incredible food made by someone who cares about every ingredient. A woman in chef's whites approached their table, her face lighting up when she saw Alexander. Alex, you didn't tell me you were bringing the famous SC tonight. Brandy's eyebrows rose. You know my work? Know it? Your review of that pretentious fusion place in Soma last month was poetry. They've confused complexity with creativity, turning simple ingredients into expensive confusion. I printed it out and hung it in my kit. Carmen's enthusiasm was infectious, and Brandy found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't in months. This felt real. No pretense, no performance, just genuine appreciation for good food and honest work. Let me cook for you tonight, Carmen continued. No menu, just trust me. As Carmen disappeared back into the kit, Alexander leaned forward. I should warn you, she's going to spoil us completely. I've never had a bad meal here. How did you find this place? Carmen pitched me her business plan 3 years ago. 26 years old, no formal culinary training, but she'd been cooking for her family since she was 12. Every bank in the Bay Area turned her down because she didn't fit their idea of a safe investment. Brandy studied his face. But you saw something they didn't. I saw someone who understood that food is about connection, not just profit. Carmen doesn't just feed people, she builds community. Look around. Brandy followed his gaze. At the neighboring tables, she saw families sharing plates, couples deep in conversation, a group of friends celebrating someone's birthday with homemade flan. The atmosphere buzzed with genuine warmth rather than the calculated ambience of high-end establishments. This is what I love about your writing, Alexander continued. You understand that restaurants aren't just businesses, they're gathering places, cultural touchstones, extensions of someone's home and heart. Their first course arrived, they ate slowly, talking between bites about food, travel, the restaurants that had shaped their palates. What does the way I eat tell you about me? Alexander's smile was slow and devastating. That you pay attention. That you respect the craft. That you're not afraid to get a little messy for something you love. Heat rose in Brandy's cheeks. Is that your professional assessment, Mr. Torres? That's my personal observation, Ms. Can I ask you something? Brandy said, setting down her fork. Why sustainable investing? You could make more money in traditional tech or finance. Alexander was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. Because I remember what it felt like to be powerless. When my parents died, when my grandmother worked herself to exhaustion just to keep me fed and housed, I swore that if I ever had the chance to change things, I would. And now you do. Now I do. Every investment I make, I ask myself, does this make the world better or just make me richer? Carmen's restaurant employs 12 people from her neighborhood, sourced from local farms, and provides healthy food in an area that was a food desert. That matters more to me than maximizing returns. Brandy felt something shift in her chest, a recognition that went deeper than attraction. That's why Richard hates you. Because I invest in sustainable businesses? Because you prove that wealth doesn't have to be corrupt. Richard's entire worldview is built on the idea that power requires moral compromise, that you can't be successful without stepping on people. You're living proof that he's wrong. Brandy, he said quietly, I need you to know something. What? This morning, 3 more of my business partners canceled their contracts. My lawyer thinks it's connected to your stepfather's influence. Brandy's stomach dropped. Alexander, I'm so sorry. I'm not telling you this because I want an apology. I'm telling you because I want you to understand that I know exactly what I'm getting into, and I'm choosing it anyway. But your business will survive. I've been preparing for Richard Whitmore's retaliation since the moment I saw those photos. I've diversified my partnerships, secured alternative funding sources, and hired additional security. Security? Alexander's expression grew serious. Men like your stepfather don't limit their warfare to boardrooms. I won't let you become collateral damage in a fight you didn't choose. The weight of what he was saying settled over her. This wasn't just about attraction anymore or even love. Alexander was willing to risk everything he'd built to protect her, to be with her. Why? She whispered. Why would you do that for someone you barely know? Because I don't barely know you. I know that you're brave enough to walk away from a fortune to follow your dreams. I know that you write about food like it's poetry. I know that you make me want to be better than I am. He paused, his dark eyes intense. And because I'm falling in love with you, Brandy. Not the Whitmore heiress, not the rebellious stepdaughter, not the famous food critic. The woman who gets excited about perfect masa and isn't afraid to fight for what she believes in. Brandy's breath caught. Alexander. Too much. No. Not enough. She leaned across the table and kissed him, tasting chocolate and possibility and the promise of something worth fighting for. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. So what happens now? She asked. Now we finish this incredible meal and then I take you home, and tomorrow we figure out how to build something beautiful while your stepfather tries to tear it down. That sounds like a terrible plan. Alexander's grin was pure mischief. The best plans usually do. As they left Tierra hand in hand, Brandy felt the weight of what was beginning between them. This wasn't just romance, it was revolution. And for the first time in her life, she was ready to fight for something instead of just running away from it. The war with Richard was escalating, but she wasn't facing it alone anymore. She had Alexander, she had her work, and she had the growing certainty that some things were worth any battle. Alexander's phone started ringing at 6 a.m. By the time he reached his office an hour later, Jessica was waiting with a stack of termination notices and a grim expression. How bad? He asked, not bothering with pleasantries. 7 restaurant partnerships canceled overnight. The vertical farming deal in Sacramento fell through. And the blockchain supply chain project just lost its primary investor. Alexander studied the documents, recognizing the pattern immediately. Each canceled contract cited strategic realignment, or shifting priorities, corporate speak for, we received a more compelling offer to walk away. Richard Whitmore works fast. There's more. Jessica handed him a tablet displaying the morning's financial news. 3 articles questioning your investment strategy, all published within the last hour. Same talking points, different outlets. Alexander scrolled through the headlines, Cryptocurrency King's risky bets, is Alexander Torres overextended? And the bubble bursts, tech darlings empire shows cracks. Coordinated media campaign. Classic Whitmore playbook. He set down the tablet and walked to his office window, looking out over San Francisco Bay. What's our exposure? Manageable if we act quickly. The restaurant partnerships were profitable but not essential. The real concern is if this spreads to our core cryptocurrency holdings. Alexander's phone buzzed with a text from Brandy. Asterisk saw the news articles. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. He typed back immediately, not your fault. Having coffee with you was worth every canceled contract. Dinner tonight? Her response came quickly, asterisk yes. But Alexander, maybe we should slow down until this settles. Absolutely not. 7 p.m. my place. I'll cook. His intercom buzzed. Sir, there's Carmen Rodriguez here to see you. She says it's about the restaurant situation. Carmen entered his office still wearing her chef's coat, her usually cheerful demeanor replaced by fierce determination. Alex, I heard what's happening. The other restaurant owners are scared. Richard Whitmore's people have been making calls, threatening to shut down anyone who works with you. Carmen, I understand if you need to distance yourself from. Are you insane? She crossed her arms, glaring at him. You gave me a chance when no one else would. You believed in my dream when every bank in the city said I was too risky. You think I'm going to abandon you because some rich pendejo is throwing a tantrum? Alexander smiled despite the circumstances. It could hurt your business. Let him try. You know what I have that he doesn't? Community. Real community. The people who eat at my restaurant, the farmers who supply my ingredients, the neighborhood that watched me build something from nothing, they don't care about Richard Whitmore's threats. She pulled out her phone and showed him a social media post. Look at this. The post featured a photo of Tierra's packed dining room with the caption, Tonight we stand with Alexander Torres and BC_food critic. Real recognizes real. Hashtag community over corporate, hashtag authenticity wins. It's been shared 8,000 times in the last hour, Carmen said. Other restaurants are posting similar messages. Food trucks, cafes, even some of the high-end places that usually stay out of politics. You've got an army, Alex. You just need to let them fight for you. Alexander stared at the phone, watching the likes and shares climb in real time. Comments poured in from restaurant owners, food bloggers, and customers expressing support for both him and Brandy. The hashtag authenticity wins was trending in the Bay Area. This is incredible. This is what happens when you invest in people instead of just profit margins. Richard Whitmore can threaten corporate partnerships all he wants, but he can't control grassroots support. After Carmen left, Alexander spent the afternoon making strategic calls. Not to beg for partnerships or defend his reputation, but to activate the network he built over 5 years of ethical investing. Small business owners, sustainable farmers, tech entrepreneurs who shared his values, people who understood that some fights were worth having. By evening, the narrative had shifted. What started as a coordinated attack on Alexander's business had become a public debate about old money versus new values, corporate intimidation versus community support. Alexander was chopping vegetables for dinner when Brandy arrived at his penthouse, looking simultaneously worried and impressed. "I saw the social media campaign," she said, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "Carmen's post has been shared 20,000 times. Your father called this morning. He's increasing his investment in my company by $50 million. Brandy spun him around, her eyes wide. "David called you?" "He wanted Richard to know that some people believe in what we're building. Both professionally and personally. I can't believe he did that. He's usually so careful about business conflicts." Alexander cupped her face in his hands. Maybe he's tired of being careful. Maybe he's ready to fight for his daughter's happiness. "Alexander, I need you to know, if this gets worse, if Richard escalates beyond business, then we'll handle it together. Brandy, look at me." She did, finding steady determination in his dark eyes. "I've spent 5 years building a company based on the idea that business can be a force for good. That wealth should serve communities, not just shareholders. Richard Whitmore represents everything I've been fighting against. The belief that power gives you the right to control other people's lives." He paused, his thumbs tracing her cheekbones. "This isn't just about us anymore. It's about proving that authenticity can win, that community is stronger than intimidation, that love is worth more than approval. That's a lot of pressure for one relationship. Good thing we're not just any relationship." As they cooked dinner together, Alexander's grandmother's recipe for arroz con pollo, Brandy felt something she'd never experienced before, the certainty that she was exactly where she belonged with exactly the right person fighting exactly the right fight. Drop a comment below if you've ever had to choose between playing it safe and fighting for what you believe in. Brandy was reviewing restaurant applications for her upcoming book when her phone rang. Claire's name on the screen made her stomach clench. They hadn't spoken since the night she'd walked out of the Whitmore estate. "Hello, Mom." "Brandy, darling." Claire's voice carried that particular strain that meant she'd been crying. "Could we meet for lunch? Just the two of us?" "I don't think that's a good idea. Please. I'm at the St. Francis Hotel. I flew out this morning." Brandy closed her laptop, her chest tightening. Claire never traveled alone, never made impulsive decisions. Whatever had driven her to San Francisco was serious. The Garden Court restaurant. 1 hour. The St. Francis Hotel's Garden Court felt like stepping back in time, crystal chandeliers, marble columns, the kind of old-world elegance that Richard preferred. Claire sat at a corner table, looking smaller than Brandy remembered, her usually perfect composure cracked around the edges. "You look wonderful," Claire said as Brandy approached. "Happy. I am happy." Brandy settled into the chair across from her mother. "What's this about, Mom?" Claire's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her water glass. "Richard doesn't know I'm here. He thinks I'm at the spa in Connecticut." "You lied to him?" "I've been doing a lot of things lately that would surprise you." Claire's smile was sad and somehow proud. "I read your food blog, you know. All of it. You're an extraordinary writer, Brandy. I should have told you that years ago." The compliment caught Brandy off guard. "Thank you." "Mom, why are you here?" Claire was quiet for a long moment, staring at her untouched salad. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because I'm afraid I'm losing both of you. Richard is so consumed with destroying Alexander Torres that he's forgotten everything else. He's not sleeping, barely eating, spending 18 hours a day making phone calls and plotting strategies. This isn't about business anymore, it's about control, about winning at any cost. That's who he's always been." "No, it's not." Claire's voice grew stronger. "When I married Richard, he was ambitious, yes, but he also had principles. He built Whitmore Capital by being smarter and more ethical than his competitors. But watching him these past weeks, I don't recognize the man I fell in love with." Brandy felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. "What do you want me to do about it?" "I want you to be careful. Richard is planning something bigger than canceled contracts and media campaigns. He's meeting with people I've never seen before, having conversations he won't discuss with me. Yesterday, I overheard him on the phone talking about permanent solutions and removing obstacles." A chill ran down Brandy's spine. "What kind of permanent solutions?" "I don't know. But Brandy, I've been married to Richard for 11 years. I know when he's moved beyond business tactics into something darker." Claire reached across the table and took Brandy's hand. I need you to promise me something. If this escalates, if you feel unsafe for even a moment, you'll call me. I have resources Richard doesn't know about. Money, connections, places you could go if necessary. Mom? Promise me. The desperation in Claire's voice was unlike anything Brandy had ever heard from her composed, controlled mother. I promise. Good. Claire squeezed her hand. Now tell me about Alexander. Really tell me. Not the gossip blog version, the truth. So Brandy did. She told Claire about their first conversation at Harvest Moon, about coffee dates that turned into 4-hour discussions, about the way Alexander listened when she talked about her dreams. She described his investment philosophy, his grandmother's influence, the community of people who believed in his vision. He makes me want to be braver, Brandy said finally. Not just in love but in everything. My writing, my career, my life. For the first time, I'm not running away from something, I'm running toward it. Claire's eyes filled with tears. That's how I felt when I met your father. David made me believe I could be more than just a pretty face at charity events. What happened? Life. Expectations. The pressure to fit into a world that valued appearance over authenticity. Claire wiped her eyes with her napkin. I chose security over passion, and I've regretted it every day since. Is that why you married Richard? I married Richard because he offered stability for both of us. You were 10 years old and I was terrified of raising you alone. Richard promised to take care of us, to give you opportunities one never could have provided. Claire paused, her voice growing heavy with regret. But I never asked what that security would cost. I never considered that protecting you from financial uncertainty might expose you to something worse, the suffocation of living someone else's life. Mom? Don't make my mistakes, Brandy. Don't choose safety over love. Don't let fear convince you that you're not strong enough to build something real. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 11 years of unspoken truths settling between them. There's something else, Claire said finally. James Ashford has been calling Richard daily. He's convinced that your relationship with Alexander is just rebellion, that you'll come to your senses if he's patient enough. James needs to move on. Richard is encouraging him. He's promised James that once Alexander is dealt with, you'll be ready to consider more appropriate options. Brandy's blood ran cold. Dealt with how? I don't know. But Richard has been meeting with people who aren't in his usual circle. Men who look like they solve problems that can't be handled through normal business channels. The implication hung between them like a threat. Brandy thought about Alexander's increased security, his casual mention of hiring protection. Had he sensed something she'd missed? I have to go, Brandy said, standing abruptly. Brandy, wait. Claire grabbed her arm. I meant what I said about resources. I have accounts Richard doesn't know about, properties in my name only. If you need to disappear for a while. I'm not disappearing. I'm not running anymore. Then be smart about how you fight. Richard has spent 40 years learning how to destroy people who threaten him. Don't underestimate what he's capable of. As Brandy walked out of the St. Francis Hotel, her phone buzzed with a text from Alexander. How did lunch with your mother go? She stared at the message, Claire's warnings echoing in her mind. Alexander had been nothing but honest with her about the risks they were facing, but this felt different. More personal, more dangerous. We need to talk. Can you meet me at your place? Of course. Is everything okay? I hope so. As she drove toward Alexander's penthouse, Brandy realized that their relationship had moved beyond romance into something that felt like survival. Richard wasn't just trying to break them up anymore, he was trying to eliminate Alexander entirely. The question was whether love could survive when the stakes became life and death. Her phone buzzed with a call from Jennifer Walsh, the literary agent. I should take this, she told Alexander. Brandy. Perfect timing. I have incredible news. 3 publishers are in a bidding war for your book. We're looking at a 7-figure advance with a 2-book deal and promotional support that will make you a household name. Under normal circumstances, this would have been the best news of Brandy's life. Today it felt surreal. That's amazing, Jennifer. But I need to ask, is this offer contingent on my current media attention? The relationship with Alexander Torres? Absolutely not. This is about your writing, your unique voice, your ability to connect food with culture and emotion. The publishers want BC, not the Whitmore heiress or Alexander Torres's girlfriend. They want the woman who wrote that devastating review of Lou Bernardine that made the chef personally call to thank you for your honesty. Brandy felt tears prick her eyes. I wrote that review? 2 months ago. You called their new menu, a love letter to the ocean. Written by someone who understands that the best ingredients need only the gentlest touch to become transcendent. The chef framed it and hung it in his kit. After ending the call, Brandy stood on the sidewalk outside the police station, trying to process the whiplash of the last hour. Someone wanted Alexander dead, but her career was about to explode in the best possible way. Good news? Alexander asked, studying her expression. 7-figure book deal. 2-book contract. They want me to be the next Anthony Bourdain, but for the Instagram generation. Alexander's face lit up despite everything they just learned. Brandy, that's incredible. This is what you've been working toward. Is it wrong that I'm excited about a book deal when someone just threatened to kill you? It's not wrong, it's human. And it's proof that you're building something real, something that exists independent of your stepfather's influence or our relationship. They walked to Alexander's car in silence, both processing the morning's revelations. They spent the afternoon at Alexander's penthouse, working side by side. He on damage control for his business, she on outlining her book proposal. The domestic normalcy felt surreal given the morning's death threats, but also necessary. Life had to continue, dreams had to be pursued even when the world felt dangerous. Can I read what you're writing? Alexander asked during a break. Brandy turned her laptop toward him, showing the opening paragraph of her book proposal. Food is the most honest language we speak. It reveals our histories, our hopes, our willingness to be vulnerable with strangers. In a world increasingly dominated by performance and pretense, the act of feeding someone, or being fed, remains stubbornly authentic. This book is about those moments of truth, found in kits from Oakland to Manhattan, where people dare to serve their hearts on a plate. Alexander read in silence, then looked up at her with an expression she couldn't quite identify. What? She asked. I'm just thinking about how lucky I am. Not just to know you but to witness you becoming who you're meant to be. Alexander. I'm serious. 6 months ago you were hiding behind a pseudonym, afraid to claim your own success. Now you're writing a book that could change how people think about food and culture, and you're doing it while someone is literally trying to kill me for dating you. When you put it like that, it sounds insane. The best love stories usually do. Are you scared? She asked. Terrified, Alexander admitted. Not of dying, of losing you. Of having this beautiful thing we're building destroyed by someone else's hatred. We're not going to let that happen. How can you be so sure? Brandy thought about her conversation with Claire, about the book deal, about the community of people rallying to support them. Because we're not fighting this alone anymore. Richard thinks he can control the narrative, but he's forgotten something important. What's that? People love a good love story. And they hate bullies even more. As if summoned by her words, Alexander's phone buzzed with a notification. Carmen Rodriguez had posted a new photo, the dining room at Tierra packed beyond capacity, with a caption that made Brandy's heart swell. Tonight we're not just serving dinner, we're serving hope. Every meal shared is an act of resistance against those who think love can be bought, sold, or destroyed. The post had been shared 15,000 times in 20 minutes. See? Brandy said, showing Alexander the screen. We're not just fighting Richard Whitmore anymore. We're fighting for something bigger, the idea that authenticity matters, that community is stronger than intimidation, that love is worth defending. Alexander pulled her closer, and for a moment, surrounded by bulletproof glass and security systems, they felt invincible. Brandy woke to the sound of Alexander's voice in the kit, speaking in rapid Spanish. She checked the clock, 5:47 a.m. Through the bedroom doorway she could see him pacing while talking on the phone, his free hand running through his hair in frustration. She padded barefoot to the kit, where Alexander was ending his call with what sounded like a string of creative curses. Everything okay? She asked, though his expression already provided the answer. That was my lawyer. Richard filed an injunction yesterday claiming I've been using insider information to manipulate cryptocurrency markets. It's complete fabrication, but it'll tie up my assets for weeks while they investigate. Brandy felt her stomach drop. Can he do that? He just did. My accounts are frozen pending a federal review. I can't access operating capital, can't make new investments, can't even pay my security team. Alexander, I'm so sorry. Don't. His voice was sharp, then immediately softened. I'm sorry. I'm not angry at you. I'm angry at myself for not seeing this coming. Brandy's phone buzzed on the counter. Claire's name flashed on the screen. It's my mother. Brandy, thank God. Claire's voice was breathless, panicked. You need to get out of San Francisco. Now. What are you talking about? Richard left the house at midnight with two men I've never seen before. He took the private jet to San Francisco. When I asked where he was going, he said he was finishing this permanently. Brandy's blood turned to ice. Mom? I've been trying to reach you for hours. Brandy, I think he's going to hurt Alexander. Or worse. Alexander was watching her face, reading the terror there. He moved closer and she put the call on speaker. Mrs. Whitmore, this is Alexander Torres. What exactly did your husband say? He's been meeting with people who aren't in his usual circle. Yesterday, I overheard him on the phone saying, the Torres problem will be resolved by morning. When I asked what he meant, he told me not to worry about business matters. Where is he now? I don't know. But Brandy, he's not the man I married anymore. This obsession with destroying you both has consumed him completely. I'm scared of what he might do. After Claire hung up, Brandy and Alexander stood in the kit, the weight of the threat settling around them like fog. We should call the detective, Brandy said. And tell her what? That your stepfather took a late-night flight and made vague threats? They can't arrest someone for being ominous. Alexander sank into a chair, the full scope of Richard's strategy becoming clear. He's not just trying to destroy my business, he's trying to destroy me personally. Criminal charges, federal investigation, complete financial ruin. I have to leave, Brandy said suddenly. What? Don't you see? This is all about me. Richard is destroying you because you're with me. If I disappear, if I go back to him and apologize. Absolutely not. Alexander's voice was steel. Brandy, look at me. She did, finding fierce determination in his dark eyes. Richard Whitmore doesn't get to win. Not like this. Not by threatening the woman I love into submission. Alexander, be realistic. He has unlimited resources, federal connections, and apparently no moral boundaries. What do we have? Each other. And something he'll never understand, people who believe in us not because of what we can do for them, but because of who we are. Alexander stood and walked to his safe, retrieving a small velvet box that made Brandy's breath catch. I bought this 3 days ago, he said, returning to sit beside her. I was planning to wait to do this properly with dinner and romance and all the traditional gestures. But traditional doesn't seem to apply to our situation. He opened the box, revealing a stunning emerald-cut diamond surrounded by smaller stones that caught the morning light like captured fire. Brandy, will you marry me? Alexander. Not because it's romantic, though I am completely in love with you. Not because it's practical, though marriage would provide certain legal protections. But because I want to spend whatever time we have left, whether it's 50 years or 50 days, building something beautiful with you. Brandy stared at the ring, her mind racing. This is insane. We've known each other for 2 weeks. I've known you for 2 weeks. I've been waiting for you my entire life. Richard will see this as the ultimate betrayal. He'll escalate beyond anything we can imagine. Then we'll face it together. As husband and wife with all the legal protections that provides. As partners who refuse to let fear make our decisions for us. Brandy thought about her conversation with Claire, about choosing security over passion and regretting it forever. She thought about her book deal, her career, the life she was finally building on her own terms. If I say yes, there's no going back. Richard will never forgive either of us. Good. I don't want his forgiveness. I want his defeat. Alexander took her hands, his voice growing soft and urgent. Brandy, I know this is fast. I know it's complicated and dangerous and probably crazy. But I also know that I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. You make me want to be braver, better, more honest about what matters. Alexander. Marry me. Not because we're under attack, but because we're stronger together than apart. Because love is the only thing Richard Whitmore can't buy, manipulate, or destroy. Brandy looked at this man who'd risked everything for her, who'd faced death threats and financial ruin without wavering, who'd shown her what it meant to be loved for exactly who she was. Yes. The word came out as barely a whisper, but Alexander heard it. His smile was radiant as he slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit as if it had been waiting for her hand specifically. Yes, he repeated as if he couldn't quite believe it. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll fight Richard Whitmore with you. Yes, I'll build something beautiful and authentic and completely ours. Alexander kissed her then, deep and desperate and full of promise. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. So what now? Brandy asked, admiring the way the diamond caught the light. Now we get married. Today. Before Richard can file more injunctions or fabricate more evidence or hire more people to destroy our lives. Today. City Hall opens at 9. We can be married by 10, and by noon we'll be on a plane to somewhere Richard Whitmore's influence can't reach us. Brandy felt a thrill of excitement mixed with terror. Where would we go? Anywhere. Everywhere. We'll write your book from a villa in Tuscany or a beach house in Costa Rica, or a cabin in the mountains. We'll build our life on our terms, not his. And when we come back? Tonight we're not just serving dinner, we're serving hope. Every meal shared is an act of resistance against those who think love can be bought, sold, or destroyed. The post had been shared 15,000 times in 20 minutes. See, Brandy said, showing Alexander the screen. We're not just fighting Richard Whitmore anymore. We're fighting for something bigger, the idea that authenticity matters, that community is stronger than intimidation, that love is worth defending. Alexander pulled her closer, and for a moment, surrounded by bulletproof glass and security systems, they felt invincible. Brandy woke to the sound of Alexander's voice in the kit, speaking in rapid Spanish. She checked the clock, 5:47 a.m. Through the bedroom doorway she could see him pacing while talking on the phone, his free hand running through his hair in frustration. She padded barefoot to the kit, where Alexander was ending his call with what sounded like a string of creative curses. Everything okay? She asked, though his expression already provided the answer. That was my lawyer. Richard filed an injunction yesterday claiming I've been using insider information to manipulate cryptocurrency markets. It's complete fabrication, but it'll tie up my assets for weeks while they investigate. Brandy felt her stomach drop. Can he do that? He just did. My accounts are frozen pending a federal review. I can't access operating capital, can't make new investments, can't even pay my security team. Alexander, I'm so sorry. Don't. His voice was sharp, then immediately softened. I'm sorry. I'm not angry at you. I'm angry at myself for not seeing this coming. Brandy's phone buzzed on the counter. Claire's name flashed on the screen. It's my mother. Brandy, thank God. Claire's voice was breathless, panicked. You need to get out of San Francisco. Now. What are you talking about? Richard left the house at midnight with two men I've never seen before. He took the private jet to San Francisco. When I asked where he was going, he said he was finishing this permanently. Brandy's blood turned to ice. Mom? I've been trying to reach you for hours. Brandy, I think he's going to hurt Alexander. Or worse. Alexander was watching her face, reading the terror there. He moved closer and she put the call on speaker. Mrs. Whitmore, this is Alexander Torres. What exactly did your husband say? He's been meeting with people who aren't in his usual circle. Yesterday, I overheard him on the phone saying, the Torres problem will be resolved by morning. When I asked what he meant, he told me not to worry about business matters. Where is he now? I don't know. But Brandy, he's not the man I married anymore. This obsession with destroying you both has consumed him completely. I'm scared of what he might do. After Claire hung up, Brandy and Alexander stood in the kit, the weight of the threat settling around them like fog. We should call the detective, Brandy said. And tell her what? That your stepfather took a late-night flight and made vague threats? They can't arrest someone for being ominous. Alexander sank into a chair, the full scope of Richard's strategy becoming clear. He's not just trying to destroy my business, he's trying to destroy me personally. Criminal charges, federal investigation, complete financial ruin. I have to leave, Brandy said suddenly. What? Don't you see? This is all about me. Richard is destroying you because you're with me. If I disappear, if I go back to him and apologize. Absolutely not. Alexander's voice was steel. Brandy, look at me. She did, finding fierce determination in his dark eyes. Richard Whitmore doesn't get to win. Not like this. Not by threatening the woman I love into submission. Alexander, be realistic. He has unlimited resources, federal connections, and apparently no moral boundaries. What do we have? Each other. And something he'll never understand, people who believe in us not because of what we can do for them, but because of who we are. Alexander stood and walked to his safe, retrieving a small velvet box that made Brandy's breath catch. I bought this 3 days ago, he said, returning to sit beside her. I was planning to wait to do this properly with dinner and romance and all the traditional gestures. But traditional doesn't seem to apply to our situation. He opened the box, revealing a stunning emerald-cut diamond surrounded by smaller stones that caught the morning light like captured fire. Brandy, will you marry me? Alexander. Not because it's romantic, though I am completely in love with you. Not because it's practical, though marriage would provide certain legal protections. But because I want to spend whatever time we have left, whether it's 50 years or 50 days, building something beautiful with you. Brandy stared at the ring, her mind racing. This is insane. We've known each other for 2 weeks. I've known you for 2 weeks. I've been waiting for you my entire life. Richard will see this as the ultimate betrayal. He'll escalate beyond anything we can imagine. Then we'll face it together. As husband and wife with all the legal protections that provides. As partners who refuse to let fear make our decisions for us. Brandy thought about her conversation with Claire, about choosing security over passion and regretting it forever. She thought about her book deal, her career, the life she was finally building on her own terms. If I say yes, there's no going back. Richard will never forgive either of us. Good. I don't want his forgiveness. I want his defeat. Alexander took her hands, his voice growing soft and urgent. Brandy, I know this is fast. I know it's complicated and dangerous and probably crazy. But I also know that I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. You make me want to be braver, better, more honest about what matters. Alexander. Marry me. Not because we're under attack, but because we're stronger together than apart. Because love is the only thing Richard Whitmore can't buy, manipulate, or destroy. Brandy looked at this man who'd risked everything for her, who'd faced death threats and financial ruin without wavering, who'd shown her what it meant to be loved for exactly who she was. Yes. The word came out as barely a whisper, but Alexander heard it. His smile was radiant as he slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, as if it had been waiting for her hand specifically. Yes, he repeated as if he couldn't quite believe it. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll fight Richard Whitmore with you. Yes, I'll build something beautiful and authentic and completely ours. Alexander kissed her then, deep and desperate and full of promise. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. So what now? Brandy asked, admiring the way the diamond caught the light. Now we get married. Today. Before Richard can file more injunctions or fabricate more evidence or hire more people to destroy our lives. Today. City Hall opens at 9. We can be married by 10, and by noon we'll be on a plane to somewhere Richard Whitmore's influence can't reach us. Brandy felt a thrill of excitement mixed with terror. Where would we go? Anywhere. Everywhere. We'll write your book from a villa in Tuscany or a beach house in Costa Rica, or a cabin in the mountains. We'll build our life on our terms, not his. And when we come back? Alexander's smile was pure determination. When we come back, we'll be ready for whatever he throws at us. Because we'll be married, legally protected, and completely committed to proving that love wins. As they began planning their escape, Brandy realized that Richard's attempt to destroy them had accomplished the opposite. He'd forced them to choose each other completely, irrevocably, with the kind of certainty that only comes from facing the worst together. The war was far from over. But for the first time, Brandy believed they could actually win it. San Francisco City Hall buzzed with its usual morning energy. Couples clutching marriage licenses, families gathering for ceremonies, the everyday magic of people choosing love in a building designed for bureaucracy. Brandy and Alexander stood in line, her engagement ring catching the light streaming through the rotunda's glass dome. Next, called the clerk, a woman in her 50s whose efficient demeanor suggested she'd seen every possible variation of human romance. We'd like to get married today, Alexander said, producing their identification and the marriage license they'd obtained an hour earlier. The clerk studied their documents with practiced efficiency. Any witnesses? Just us, Brandy replied. I can provide witnesses for $50. Judge Martinez has an opening at 11:30. As they completed the paperwork, Brandy's phone exploded with notifications. Carmen Rodriguez had posted a photo of Tierra's front window, now decorated with a banner reading "Congratulations Brandy and Alexander," in hand-painted letters. The caption read, "Love wins. Our friends are getting married today, and we're celebrating with a special engagement menu all week. Because when good people find each other, the whole community benefits." How did she know? Brandy asked, showing Alexander the post. I may have texted her this morning. I wanted someone to know in case. In case Richard succeeds in destroying us? In case we need people to remember that this was real. More notifications flooded in. Food bloggers, restaurant owners, customers who'd followed their story, all sharing congratulations and support. The hashtag Brandy and Alexander wedding was trending in the Bay Area. But among the celebration, darker messages appeared. Anonymous accounts posting threats, suggesting the marriage wouldn't last long, hinting at permanent solutions to their problem. He's watching, Brandy said, scrolling through the hostile comments. Let him watch. Let him see that his threats only made us stronger. At 11:15, They were called into Judge Martinez's chambers, a small wood-paneled room that had witnessed thousands of marriages. The judge, a Latina woman with kind eyes and silver hair, smiled as they entered. "I understand you're in something of a hurry," she said. "Family complications?" Alexander replied diplomatically. Well, love doesn't wait for convenient timing. Shall we begin?" The ceremony was simple, efficient, and somehow perfect. No elaborate flowers or designer dress, no orchestra or champagne reception. Just two people promising to choose each other, witnessed by strangers who became part of their story. "Do you, Alexander Torres, take Brandy to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." His voice was steady, certain. "Do you, Brandy, take Alexander Torres to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Brandy looked into Alexander's eyes, seeing her future reflected there, uncertain, dangerous, but absolutely worth fighting for. "I do. By the power vested in me by the state of California, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Alexander's kiss was gentle, reverent, full of promise. When they broke apart, both were smiling through tears. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Torres," Judge Martinez said. "May your love be stronger than whatever brought you here in such haste." As they signed the marriage certificate, Brandy's phone rang. Richard's number flashed on the screen. She declined the call and turned off the phone. "No interruptions today," she told Alexander. "Today is ours." They emerged from City Hall into brilliant California sunshine, officially married and giddy with the surreal joy of it. Alexander had arranged for a photographer, a friend who specialized in capturing authentic moments rather than posed perfection. "Just be yourselves," the photographer said, and for 20 minutes they forgot about death threats and frozen assets and federal investigations. They laughed, kissed, spun around on the steps like teenagers drunk on possibility. The photos would later become iconic, not because they were professionally perfect but because they captured something real. Two people choosing love in the face of overwhelming opposition, their joy radiating despite the storm clouds gathering around them. "Where to now, Mrs. Torres?" Alexander asked as they walked to his car. "Somewhere Richard Whitmore has never been and never will be." They drove to a small cafe in the Mission District, the kind of place that served perfect coffee and minded its own business. As they shared a piece of tres leches cake, their impromptu wedding cake, Brandy felt a peace she hadn't experienced in months. "Any regrets?" Alexander asked. "Only that we didn't do this sooner." "Even knowing what's coming?" Brandy considered the question seriously. Richard's retaliation would be swift and merciless. The federal investigation would drag on for months. Their lives would be scrutinized, their love questioned, their every decision analyzed by people who'd never faced such choices. "Especially knowing what's coming. Whatever happens next, we face it as a team." Alexander's phone buzzed with a text from his friend. "Congratulations. Also, heads up, Richard just called an emergency board meeting at Whitmore Capital. Something big is happening." "He knows," Alexander said, showing Brandy the message. "Good. Let him know that we're not hiding anymore." They spent the afternoon driving through San Francisco, visiting places that had become meaningful to them. The coffee shop where they'd had their first real conversation. Tierra, where Carmen insisted on serving them a celebratory lunch despite their protests. The Overlook where they'd watched the sunset and talked about building something beautiful together. At each stop, people recognized them, not as celebrities but as symbols of something larger. Young couples approached to say their story had inspired them to be braver in love. Restaurant workers thanked them for standing up to corporate intimidation. Food bloggers asked for photos not for gossip but for hope. "We've become a movement," Brandy realized as they watched the sun set over the Pacific. "We've become ourselves. The movement is just people recognizing authenticity when they see it." As evening approached, they returned to Alexander's penthouse to find his security team waiting with grim expressions. "Mr. Torres, we've had developments," the team leader said. "Richard Whitmore landed in San Francisco 3 hours ago. He's not alone. Our sources indicate he's brought private security of his own." "What kind of private security?" "The kind that doesn't ask questions about legality." Alexander's jaw tightened. "Recommendations. Leave the city. Tonight. We can arrange safe transport to a location where Mr. Whitmore's influence is limited." Brandy looked around the penthouse. Their first home as a married couple, the place where they'd fallen in love, the sanctuary that was no longer safe. "Where would we go?" "I have a property in Costa Rica. Remote, secure, completely off the grid. You could stay there until the federal investigation clears you and Mr. Whitmore's resources are exhausted." "How long could that take?" Months. Maybe years. Brandy felt the weight of the choice before them. They could run, disappear into a tropical paradise, build their life in exile while Richard claimed victory. Or they could stay and fight, risking everything for the principle that love shouldn't have to hide. What do you think? Alexander asked her. Brandy thought about her book deal, about the community that had rallied around them, about the young couples who'd approached them today seeking inspiration. Running felt like abandoning everyone who'd believed in their story. I think, she said slowly, that we didn't get married in secret. We got married in public with witnesses and photographers and social media posts. We're not hiding anymore. Alexander smiled, the expression fierce and proud. So we stay. We stay. And we finish this. The security team exchanged glances, clearly thinking they were making a mistake. But as Brandy looked at her new husband, she knew they were making the only choice that would let them live with themselves. Richard Whitmore wanted a war. Tomorrow he would get one. But tonight belonged to them, Mr. and Mrs. Torres, married and unafraid, ready to prove that some things were worth any fight. Richard Whitmore stood in the lobby of the St. Francis Hotel at 6 a.m., his silver hair perfectly styled despite the red-eye flight, his expression carved from granite. The two men flanking him looked like they solved problems that couldn't be handled through legal channels. Sir, his assistant approached cautiously, the surveillance team confirms they're still at the Torres penthouse. No movement since last night. Good. They think they're safe behind their security team. Richard's smile was cold as winter. They have no idea what real power looks like. Across the city, Brandy woke in Alexander's arms, sunlight streaming through the bulletproof windows of their penthouse. For a moment she forgot about federal investigations and death threats, lost in the simple joy of being Mrs. Torres. Good morning, wife, Alexander murmured against her hair. Good morning, husband. The words still felt surreal, wonderful. Their peaceful moment shattered when Alexander's phone erupted with notifications. Text after text, call after call, all from the same person, Carmen Rodriguez. Alex, answer your phone. Carmen's voice was breathless with excitement when he finally picked up. You need to see what's happening. Carmen, it's barely 7. Turn on channel 7. Now. Alexander grabbed the remote, switching to the local news. The anchor's voice filled the room. What started as a simple wedding announcement has become a citywide celebration of love over intimidation. We go now to our reporter in the Mission District. The screen cut to a live shot of Valencia Street, where hundreds of people had gathered outside Tierra Restaurant. The crowd held signs reading "Love Wins," "Authenticity over Authority," and "Congratulations Brandy and Alexander." Food trucks lined the street, offering free breakfast to anyone who wanted to celebrate. This is incredible, the reporter said, interviewing a woman holding a bouquet of sunflowers. Can you tell us why you're here? Because they represent something real, the woman replied. In a world full of fake everything, they chose authentic love over easy money. That's worth celebrating. The camera panned across the crowd, young couples, families, restaurant workers, food bloggers, tech entrepreneurs. A diverse coalition united by the simple belief that love should triumph over intimidation. Carmen, how did this happen? Brandy asked, still staring at the screen. Social media magic. Your wedding photos went viral overnight, not because they were perfect but because they were real. People are sharing their own stories about choosing love over security, authenticity over approval. You've become symbols of something bigger than yourselves. Alexander's phone rang. Marcus's name appeared on the screen. Alex, are you watching the news? We're watching. It's not just San Francisco. Similar gatherings are happening in Oakland, Berkeley, even down in San Jose. The hashtag #AuthenicityWins is trending nationally. Food Network wants to interview you both. 3 more publishers are bidding on Brandy's book. Marcus, there's more. The federal investigation into your company? Turns out someone leaked information about the fabricated evidence to the press. The SEC is now investigating who tried to frame you instead of investigating you. Brandy felt her heart race. Who leaked it? Someone with access to Richard Whitmore's communications. Someone who's tired of watching him destroy people for sport. As if summoned by their conversation, the news switched to breaking coverage from Manhattan. Richard Whitmore stood outside Whitmore Capital, surrounded by reporters shouting questions. Mr. Whitmore, can you comment on allegations that you fabricated evidence against Alexander Torres? Mr. Whitmore, is it true you hired private investigators to stalk your stepdaughter? Mr. Whitmore, what's your response to the nationwide support for the Torres wedding? Richard's composure cracked slightly, his jaw tightening as he pushed through the crowd without comment. But the damage was done. His carefully constructed image of respectability was crumbling in real time. "He's losing control of the narrative," Alexander observed. "Good," Brandy said fiercely. "Let him see what happens when you try to destroy something people actually care about." Their security team leader knocked on the bedroom door. "Mr. and Mrs. Torres, we have a situation developing." They dressed quickly and met him in the living room, where multiple screens showed feeds from around the city. The crowds were growing larger, more organized. Food trucks had become impromptu stages where people shared stories about choosing authenticity over approval. "This is unprecedented," the security leader said. "We've never seen grassroots support mobilize this quickly. But it also makes you more visible, more vulnerable." "What do you recommend?" Alexander asked. "Normally, I'd say stay hidden until the threat passes. But this isn't a normal situation. The public support is your best protection right now. Richard Whitmore can't make you disappear when the whole city is watching." Brandy looked at Alexander, seeing her own thoughts reflected in his eyes. They could hide in their penthouse while others fought their battle, or they could step into the light and claim their victory. "We're going out there," she said. "Brandy, we're going to Tierra. We're going to thank the people who believed in us. And we're going to show Richard Whitmore that love doesn't hide." An hour later, they emerged from Alexander's building to find a crowd of supporters waiting. Cheers erupted as they appeared, people holding flowers and signs, cameras flashing as they walked hand in hand toward the waiting car. The drive to the Mission District felt like a victory parade. At every intersection, people waved and cheered. Food trucks honked their horns. Restaurant workers came out of kits to applaud as they passed. When they arrived at Tierra, the crowd had grown to over 1,000 people. Carmen stood on a makeshift stage, addressing the gathering with the passion of a revolutionary. "Love is not a business transaction," she declared to thunderous applause. "Authenticity is not for sale. And when bullies try to destroy what we value, we stand together." The crowd roared its approval as Brandy and Alexander made their way through the throng. People reached out to touch them, to offer congratulations, to share their own stories of choosing love over security. Carmen spotted them and pulled them onto the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. and Mrs. Torres." The cheers were deafening. Brandy looked out over the sea of faces, young and old, every ethnicity and background, united by the simple belief that their love story mattered. "Thank you," Brandy said into the microphone, her voice carrying over the crowd. "Yesterday we got married not because it was easy but because it was right. Not because it was safe but because it was real." More cheers, more applause. "Some people think love can be bought, controlled, or destroyed by those with money and power. But you've proven them wrong. You've shown that community is stronger than intimidation, that authenticity wins over authority, that love, real love, is the most powerful force in the world." Alexander took the microphone. 6 months ago, I was just a businessman trying to make ethical investments. Brandy was just a food critic trying to tell honest stories. But together, we've become something neither of us could be alone. Proof that when you choose authenticity over approval, the universe conspires to help you. The crowd erupted again, but this time the cheers were mixed with something else, the sound of sirens approaching. Police cars, but not threatening, escorting a black sedan through the crowd. The sedan stopped near the stage, and to everyone's surprise, Claire Whitmore stepped out. She looked older than Brandy remembered, worn down by weeks of conflict, but her expression was determined. "Mom?" Brandy called from the stage. Claire approached the microphone, her voice shaking but clear. "My name is Claire Whitmore. I'm Brandy's mother, and I'm Richard Whitmore's wife." The crowd fell silent, sensing drama. "I came here to tell you all something important. The evidence against Alexander Torres was fabricated. The federal investigation was based on lies. And the man I married, the man I thought I knew, has become someone I no longer recognize." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "I leaked the information to the press because I couldn't watch him destroy my daughter's happiness for his own ego. I'm filing for divorce and I'm testifying against him in the federal investigation." Claire looked up at Brandy, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry it took me so long to choose you over him. I'm sorry I let fear make me complicit in his cruelty. But I'm choosing love now. I'm choosing you." Brandy jumped down from the stage and embraced her mother, both women crying as the crowd cheered around them. Alexander followed, wrapping both women in his arms as cameras captured the moment that would define their victory. In Manhattan, Richard Whitmore watched the live coverage from his office, his empire crumbling around him. His wife had betrayed him, his stepdaughter had escaped him, and his enemy had won not through money or power, but through something he'd never understood, the simple courage to be authentic. As the celebration continued in San Francisco, federal agents were already preparing warrants for Richard's arrest. The fabricated evidence, the hired surveillance, the attempts to manipulate federal investigations, all of it would come to light. But in the Mission District, surrounded by 1,000 people who believed in their love story, Brandy and Alexander Torres held each other and knew they had won something more valuable than any legal victory. They had proven that authenticity wins, that community conquers intimidation, and that love, real, honest, courageous love, is indeed the most powerful force in the world.